Make that big boss less special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level, baby. Second level.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Our next talk is From Passion to Business by Jenny Gibbons. Seated here. I'll let Jenny take it from here.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Y'all enjoying Pixelpop? Yeah. All right. So my talk isn't going to be like your typical business talk, like how to fund a business in the nitty-gritty sense of the word. I'm really here to talk more about kind of the mental and emotional transitions you have to go through when you're changing what you used to do for fun and as a hobby, although I always use that word sparingly, into your bread and butter. And I think there are a lot of roadblocks or challenges that you can encounter when you're trying to make it your career that you don't expect. That's really just these emotional transitions you have to go through. So, okay. So you've probably heard something like this before, but feel the need to state some general disclaimers kind of about the industry in general. There's really no one right path to success. So, as I'm talking, just take it with a grain of salt because your path might be a bit different. And this is something that's just kind of really important to my personal belief that success means whatever it means to you. It's a word that we use a lot in this society that often gets equated to, fame and fortune, or working on a big, AAA company or something like that. And really, you should think about what success means to you. What is it that you want to achieve creatively and as a person? What's fulfilling to you? The industry is constantly changing. There are times when I've looked at talks from a couple years ago that are pretty much obsolete now because the industry changes so much. So it's important just to keep an eye on all of that. And we're all figuring this out as we go. So, fun times. All right, part one. In the beginning, there was passion. And that's generally how it starts, right? Because games are very fun, and you like to play them for fun, and you make them for fun when you have time. And maybe you call yourself a hobbyist as a game developer. Again, I kind of don't like that word because you can still be very devoted to something and just not be able to make it your full-time job yet. But I just use it here to kind of differentiate that you're not doing it as your career just yet. So that's the first stage. And then you find that you're funneling as much free time as you can into working on your own game, your own project. Then you get excited maybe about a specific project, and you just keep working on it, and you really hone in on it. The scope gets bigger, you get further along than ever before. Eventually, you might not be able, oh, sorry about some typos here. Sorry, you might not get enough sleep or have a life beyond your full-time job and the games you're making for fun. And so in this case, I'm kind of talking about what happened with me. I was working a full-time job and making games on the side, and it's a hard thing. I don't want to discourage people from doing it, but I don't think it's something you can keep up for very long, especially without a good support system, just because making games takes so much work. So many different skills, or if you're on a team, it's a lot of team management. And it's just a hard thing to do, to keep that up and a full-time job as well. For me, what happened is I didn't get enough sleep. It got pretty unhealthy. You might find that your day job is no longer fulfilling you because you just want to be working on this project all the time. And you realize you want to make games for a living. And this is, just kind of the general stages that you might go through as you're realizing you want to do game dev as a career. So, hopefully you get to this stage soon after where you have your first release. And this is, you know, I like hesitated before putting this picture, but I was like, no, I've got to, that's the point. This was for my first game, so, you know, I like cringe at the artwork and the design of it now. But the point is that I finished something and I put it out. And that's really important. I just encourage anyone to do that, even if, you know, even if you're just specializing on a specific skill and you want to work on a larger team. You learn so much by finishing your own project or with a small team and releasing it into the world, you know, maybe for free, just to see how people react. So that's what I did when I finished my first visual novel. And you know, maybe that your first release has lots of issues, it's small in scope, it has lots of bugs, but because you're doing it for fun, it's also like kind of your first big display of what you love doing. Like it's kind of your pure work in that sense. And you can learn a lot about what might be your potential like business target audience by seeing who responds to that work. So for me, I hadn't studied the market a whole lot yet, but I put this out when I finished, and a lot of people responded in these visual novel communities and really enjoyed it. And it was really great. And you're not always going to have that. I was somewhat lucky that I was able to show it to community that responded really well. But you know, as long as you get in front of some people and see who responds, it'll help you figure out like the kind of people that are going to get excited about your project, the target audience. What other things do they like? What sort of interests tends to overlap with yours? So I highly encourage people to just to push that first release out as you're starting to get more serious. So inspired to improve. So yeah, this was my drawing of Serafina like 5 or 6 years ago. And this is a more recent drawing that I'm eventually going to do probably a re-release of some sort with freshly drawn characters. But you know, I've gotten a lot better. You know, it's taken time, but that first release and seeing how people responded both positively and negatively taught me a lot, inspired me to improve and realize, okay, these are things that I can do better in my next game. So you'll learn a lot about that with your first game. You'll get inspired to do another one. And what's really important is realizing that you have that audience out there, or at least those certain types of people out there that will get excited about your game. So that's when you get to the stage of where you have to take fun seriously, because you've decided you want this to be your career. So first of all, you gotta stop calling it a hobby. Again, why I always put it in quotations, because I'm only using it to just technically differentiate that it's not your job. But once you get serious about making games as a career, you'll need to accept a lot of things about the creative work you're doing. First of all, that it's not just about you anymore. Of course you want to be expressing yourself. Of course you want to be, you know, have a lot of your pure emotions and vision come through. But it's not just about you. It's about conveying something to a larger group. And that's both important so that you'll eventually make sales and so that you'll be more fulfilled creatively by being able to communicate to that audience. Your artwork, and I just mean in the general sense, creative work, is important. So what you'll realize as you're starting to take it more seriously is that it has value to people. And you know, I kind of grew up in with that family mindset where, oh, it's always fine to do art for fun on the side. You never want to make it your job because you're not going to be able to pay the bills. That's not a real job. But you really have to change your mindset, and you know, an argument you can make is that art and entertainment are actually really beneficial to society. Consider how your creative expression can help other people. Maybe help them, you know, realize something about themselves, or just give them entertainment that they need at the end of a long day. So think about, what your work can offer and why it's important to people. And yet your creative work has value, and yes, that means monetary value. So kind of tied into all this, both what people are going to get out of it emotionally or whatnot, is also why they're going to eventually give you money for it. So that leads to branding yourself. And this is not very fun, but at least for me, I do not like the marketing phase of this, of being an indie game dev business. But it's very important, and you want to really be thinking about it in this stage. So think about the overall mood you want to communicate to others on a regular basis, probably throughout all the work that you'll continue to make. And you're going to be trying to convey that through your marketing materials. The easiest way to get started is to really study brands that you love and think about why they make you excited. What is it that they promise you? And how is it that they tell you that they're going to give you that, through their trailers or promotional artwork or whatever? What is it that pulls you into those works? And what can you do that's similar for other people? So, and remember that it's not all about you. So it really becomes more of a balancing act as you're starting to get serious as a business. You still can find something that you want to do that's also going to maybe work well in the market. And it's definitely a balancing act there. Again, thinking about what your work provides to other people. And also, what can you give people that they can't get anywhere else? And this is always hard, just because there's so many games out there. You can get all types of games, nothing new under the sun and all of that. But as they say, no other game has been made by you. And you still just want to think about what it is that you can bring that you don't see in other works out there. So again, marketing is something I struggle with, but through a lot of iteration and research, this is kind of how we ended up branding our studio. I highly recommend a book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I've read a few business books, but that was the one, probably because I'm a storyteller, that spoke the most to me about how to approach your business and marketing in a way that's still creative and fun. So the general idea is that you're kind of, what's the story that you're telling to your audience? And for us, we created a headline for players who are tired of rescuing the princess, with the hope of both hinting at what we're providing that a lot of other games aren't, and hopefully, pulling in our target audience. And then we go into further detail of, this is for players who are tired of slaying dragons, rescuing the princess, shooting everything. And our goal as a studio, what we do differently is making storytelling our primary focus. So all those things, just our way of saying, here's what we do, and here's how it's different from a lot of other things out there. Like a lot of games just make story at least the second priority, not their top priority. So this is, a very hard phase where you're just going to be treading water for a while, because a career shift probably won't happen overnight. So for me, it lasted several years where I was working other jobs and doing games on the side. But there are various ways you can do it, and you might want to think about what works best for you. You might need to take a bit of a leap of faith, move to a new place, search for jobs. If you can, work that day job in the meantime. Also, building up savings is a valid way to give yourself the room to take a leap later and start your business. Network within the game industry to get your foot in the door for a job. Also, if you're able to find funding for your project, you can try Kickstarter, Patreon, or a publisher for that, it's still pretty difficult, but you could still try that at this stage and see if you have success and are able to just, go into your project full time with some funding. So these are my published games, some of them, and I'm just showing them to say that I basically had to release 5 before I really started making enough money where I thought I could do it full time. And even then, I wasn't sure. I got laid off from my full-time job, so that helped me take the leap, whether I liked it or not. This path is not for everyone, but for me, this is honestly what worked as my business model, was to keep releasing games. I don't do like big AAA budget kind of games. I do story games. So I'm able to go, finish one within at least about a year. And I just keep releasing them. And, I'm getting low on time. But that builds up, revenue very gradually. And then once you're finally getting to that point where you're making the money, and you're like, okay, maybe I can do this as my job, you'll probably go through a few more phases that are not so great. So right at the bat, you're in paradise. Making games full-time is a dream come true. You are very, very happy. From there, I'm thinking you'll start to lean towards either one of 2 extremes. You work too much on the game and you forget to leave your house. This is what happened to me. You think that you have all the time in the world to to hang out with your friends and everything else, but when you're your own boss and you're really excited about your project, you can really end up overworking yourself and burning out and then losing interest later. The alternative is that maybe you have a hard time with the motivation, and so now that you're your own boss, you're staying at home, not getting a lot done. You're not meeting those deadlines that you're setting for yourself, or maybe you're not setting deadlines, which you should always set deadlines. So here's the big kicker for me, is that you stop knowing what to do to relax, now that what you used to call your hobby is now your full-time job. And that's really hard. And you just basically have to find times where you can still do it without any strings or obligations attached. Like, separate out your time so that in these hours you're working and these hours you're doing whatever you want. Even if you end up still working on the project, you don't have to. But these are the hard phases where it starts to get hard to tell the difference. And I'm just going to be really fast because we're low on time. But maintaining your passion, facing burnout, these are the really hard challenges. Oh yeah, it's hard enough, when someone says, oh, your game sucks. It's also really even harder when they say that and you're not able to pay your bills because you're not making enough sales. All that to say, when you face all those hard things and you're still able to keep doing it and maintain a business structure that's rewarding your fans out there, you get to do what you love for a living, and it feels amazing. You will learn to work within constraints. You will grow a lot as a creative artist. You will get so much better. Connecting with your audience is not just about making money, but you'll grow a lot as a person, and again, like, your skill will just grow so much faster. So even though your creative outlet now feels like work sometimes, it will probably fulfill you more than ever, and you respect your work in a way that you didn't before, and other people find value in it. So that was what the journey was like for me, and I hope that many of you are able to take a similar journey with all of its ups and downs. If you wanted to ask me any other more specific questions about me or my studio, that's my email, and Woodsy Studios is woodsystudio.com. Did we have any quick questions here? Yes. I think it's all a little blurry, but I think it was either 4 or 5. So I'll say safe side and say 4. And one of those was free, so there were only 3 of them that were actually bringing in some money. But me and my partner, he joined in around this time, had some other things in the works that we were hoping to put out soon. Any other questions? Yeah? Yeah, you know, it's really important to set a schedule for yourself. Set really tight deadlines for yourself, and it can be for just short phases of your work, but that way you can really track when you're falling behind too much. And there have been times when I've been overwhelmed by how much work I had to do, so much that I just couldn't find motivation. But I would sit down. I would say, all right, I'm just going to spend 15 minutes on each of these drawings, no matter what, and see how far I get. And I would have 6 drawings I had to do. I would set a timer. And then I would go through and have 6 sketches at the end and feel a lot better. So just setting those little deadlines can help. But yeah, I believe I'm out of time. I think, is it okay if I take another? Is that all right? All right, one more question.
When you first started out, like, how many people did you start? How many people were on your team when you're on your first release?
It's actually all me. And I worked in an engine where I didn't have to do much programming. I didn't know much programming yet. My art skills were a bit rough. But yeah, I worked in RimPy. And this is why I say the industry is changing so much. This was like, 5 years ago, and at that point there were a lot less games being released every day. It was still a lot of competition, but I think that helped me get some early visibility that was helpful to me. But yeah, all me. All right, well, thanks everyone.
It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level.